Hello and welcome everybody to this little tutorial or case study. And here I just want to show you how you can prepare data, right, for an analysis. So imagine that we want to analyze the use of going to and will in 2 or 3 corpora, doesn't matter, right? And here we're going to analyze data from the Brown corpus, which is American English, from the ACE, which is Australian English, and the LOP, which is British English. All right. So if we have a look at a file in the Brown, you'll see that, let me pull this over real quick. You'll see that in addition to the text, right, there are these little things here which we don't want, all right? We only want the text. So if we would just use the data as is, it would be a little bit more difficult because we'd have that little thing in there too. Now, when we want to analyze going to and will, we'll have a look at the verbs that go with going to and will, which means that we have to post tag the data, right? So we will not just have a look at going to and will and then see how it's used. We'll actually extract all instances of going to and will and then look for verbs that are used together with these two constructions, right? And for the post tagging, it also is important that we get rid of things that are not actually a language themselves, right? So how do we get rid of these things? Let me just give you another example. Let's take a file from the ACE, right? And here also, there's lots of tags that we actually don't need, right? So again, would be important to clean it. And if we look at LOB, there's also something that we don't need, right? So for example, this here and lots of annotation that we don't need, right? So again, it's important that we actually clean the data. So how are we going to do that? So how are we cleaning the data? In the first step, what I would do is I would go and open TextPad. If you have a Windows machine, I strongly recommend that you use TextPad. If you don't have a Windows machine, there are alternatives to TextPad that do the same thing, but they are used in Mac, all right? So first, I need to open files, right? So here I'm going to start with the Brown corpus. So here, window opened, and now I can just highlight all these files and then say open, and then we see all these files here, right? And now we need to think of a way of basically making that data nicer or cleaner, right? So in my case, I have to press Fn for the function button, and then F8, and I get a window, a replace window, right? And now we've learned about regular expressions. So here I'm going to look for A to Z capital, and that will then get rid of the R, right? And then we have numbers 0 to 9. Sorry, there is a curly bracket. I don't need the curly bracket here. We need a curly bracket now. We can do it like this, and then we could continue like that. Another option, instead of looking for the regular expression pattern, right, you could do that and then continue this regular expression pattern. Let's actually do that, right? So then there's a space, at least one space, let's say as many as you want. Then there are numbers again. So 0 to 9. At least one. Say up to 6. I don't know how many there are. Then there's again a space. And we don't know how many. We'll just say at least one. And then there's another number. So 0 to 9. And at least one. Right. And now, if we replace that with just a single space, let's see how that works. Let's say just in the active document, right? To basically see how that works. So that works perfectly well. So I'm going to extend this to all documents. Right? And now you can check the others, and it seems to have worked. Let's scroll down. Yeah, that has worked well. All right. Now, in addition, I want to do something which is get rid of all the superfluous white spaces. So I'm going to use an expression here, a space, and then say if there's 2 or more, replace them with 1 white space. That's what we're going to do next. This will do it automatically for all files. Now, if we have a line break and a space, just want to use the white space. And it will remove the line break if we do it like that. And that will take a while because there's lots of line breaks in the document, right? Let's just wait. And then we should see that the files are in a single line. Perfect, right? And now we can say if there's, for example, an exclamation mark, then I want to have the exclamation mark and some sequence. And here we're not going to uncheck regular expression. Going to replace them all. You'll see why in a moment. Because now we can just say, if you find the sequence, then please fill in a line break. And now whenever there's an exclamation mark, we now have a line break. So here we're going to say, if you find a dot or punctuation mark, then we're going to do the same thing. And now we can say, if you find sequence, you can choose any sequence pretty much. Yeah, I'm just going to use the first letters on my keyboard. I'm going to replace all. And that will then also split everything up into sentences, right? Just final thing, if we find a line break with white space at the beginning, we're going to replace them all. And that should be fine. So we're just going to leave this as it is. Going to close this. I'm going to save all. And now if we open the Brown corpus and look at the first file, we'll see that it's much cleaner, right? So this way I've just cleaned the Brown corpus. And I'm going to do the same thing for the ACE. So you don't need to open and close, but I like doing that so that everything's fresh. I'm going to say open files. And then I'm going to the ACE corpus. I'm going to load all the files. And in this case, I just want to press function F8 again. And here I want everything that's between pointy brackets. And I want to replace that with white space. So let's basically see in this current document if that works, first of all. And yes, that's actually works very, very well. So we're going to do that for all documents. We'll still have some things here, but that is very difficult to get rid of. So that's perfectly fine, I think. So again, we're going to remove superfluous white spaces. Great, this has worked. Now we only have white spaces, one white space at the beginning, right? Again, if there's line break, we're going to replace that with a with white space. This will take a while again because wasn't actually that bad. Do that again. Right, so now everything is in a single line. You can now actually go back and say if you find a dot, then replace that with dot QWERTY. Let's say replace all again. That's a lot of work for the program, so it might take a little while. Right, and now if you find QWERTY, can put in a line break. It's the regular expression. Replace all, yes. And then if we find line break in a space, replace it with a line break. I'm going to do that just to get rid of white spaces at the beginning of lines, which is something we don't need. Actually, we can do it even nicer. We can just say if you find 2, make it 1. Oh, no, we can actually say 1 to infinity. Okay, so now looks much better, right? Here, this is something that we just can change. That's the way it is, right? But we see overall, it's split more or less nicely, right? We then can do some other things, like, for example, again, removing superfluous white spaces because I see that there's a couple of them. That has made it a lot nicer. You can also get rid of, for example, these symbols. Let's actually do that. Replace it with nothing. Here, we're not going to use regular expression. Right. And then that should be fine, right? So again, we're going to save the results, save all. And I should mention that I've made copies of these corpora, right? So I still have the originals. That's very important. You don't actually change originals. You always change copies, not the original files. So now the ACE corpus is fine. And here I'm going to use an AND-conc to clean the lob data. So here again, we need to load it first. Open files. We'll go to the lob, going to highlight all the files. Open, and then we have a look here. So again, we're going to use a regular expression. So fn f8. And here, what we can do is we can say A to Z. And then we have 0 to 9. At least 1. Let's say we don't know how many. Then we have white space. At least 1. Then we have more numbers, 0 to 9. And we say at least 1. And then we have white space, at least, let's say at least 2. And that hopefully should get rid of this pattern. So you have capital letter, got it. Then number, right? At least 1, probably 2. Then white space, another number, and then another white space. So here we're going to replace that with a dot. We're going to chat regular expressions. We're going to do it for the active document first. So this has worked for most of them, but not all of them. So let's run again. So this differs from these. Why? Get rid of this. Again. Yeah, so that was actually a better regular expression. Right, so now we can apply that to all documents. So now we see that here it's the same. In addition, we're going to clean it by just getting rid of star symbols or asterisk. It's not regular expression. Also want to get rid of this symbol. We also want to get rid of that symbol. All right. And here we have these zeros. We have some artifacts here, right? Overall, we have something else here. We have if something is between round brackets. So I'm going to say, look for round brackets. And then let's try something. Let's say if you find that sequence, replace it with a dot. So here I'm actually not sure if that works. So this doesn't work, right? So here what I want, then let's do it differently. I want that. Let's see. Let's see if that works. That has not worked. Let's see if that has done. Oh, good. It hasn't done it there. So we can just go back. So in that case, I'm going to say if you find sorry. Here we have a number first, then a lowercase letter, and then a number again. Then get rid of that. It has problems with the brackets, right? This works. Right, so it has gotten rid of what's in the brackets now. So now I can just say, okay, if you find an open bracket, replace it. If you find a closing bracket, replace it. And now I can say, if you find white space, 2 or more, replace it with a single white space. That's fine. Again, we're going to get rid of line breaks. That will take a while. Oh, that's something that I haven't done here. Right, so now I need to do a few things again, which is if you find \0, regular expressions in all documents, replace that. See that there's more of them, so I'm going to use all of them, otherwise it looks pretty clean. Have these things. So if there's something within pointy brackets, rid of that. Let's see if that works. Do it for the active document first. Yeah, worked. So let's do it for all. All right. Not super clean, but it's okay-ish. All right. So now if you find a line break, replace it with a space. But for all documents, and that will take a while, but it should help us have everything in a single line, and then we'll put all sentences in a separate row. That's what this step intends to do, so that every line is in single, every sentence in a single line. So now we're going to replace a dot wordy and check regular expression or document. Yes, okay. And that will take a while because there's lots of dots in our document. We're also going to say, if you find an exclamation mark, do the same thing. And then we're going to say, if you find wordy at a line break, this is a regular expression, place all. That worked pretty well, but here we have something Mr. All right. So if we find Mr. dot and then a line break, I want it to be Mr. dot and without a line break. Let's see if this works in this document. Not find that regular expression. Here we have Mr. dot and then a line break. It doesn't like to escape the dot. This should also work. Oh, better. So we'll do that for all documents. And now we're going to replace superfluous white spaces. Try that again. Right. And now if there's a line break in the space, replace it with just a line break. All documents, perfect. We can now save all of them in my corpus. Now, if I open the lob, let's have a look at what that looks like. Not perfect, but it's a lot cleaner, right? Here, for example, was Mr. in capitals. We haven't looked at that. Overall, it's much nicer, right? We still have some stuff here, but overall much better. Okay, so now what we've done is we've cleaned the corpus data, right? So that's also something that is useful for you, right? And remember that we want to look at the use of will and going to, all right? And I said that we're only interested in the verbs. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open tag end. So that opened here. So then I'm going to open files. Here it's on my desktop. And here we have the ACE corpus, for example. I'm going to highlight all the ACE files, open them, and then just start. Now, because it's quite a lot of text, it will just take a while, right? Here, English is preset, but you could also use other languages if you're looking at a different language. And then it will produce in the ACE corpus, let's have a look, we'll create a folder called tagged, right? And then that will put the tagged versions of the text files. So we see that it's already tagged now 4 files, and we just wait until it has finished tagging all of the files. And again, remember, these are just copies. I still have the originals on my computer. So these are really just copies that I use only for this study, right? But post tagging takes a while. Just something that we have to live with for the moment. Right. So this is all part of the pre-processing. So pre-processing means that you prepare data for analysis, right? And in our case, the analysis is of the will and going to. So all what I'm doing at the moment is preparing the data in a way that I can then use it in my analysis. All right, it's still writing files. It's done with the post tagging, but it still needs to save all the files here. Perfect. All right. So now I'm going to clear this and I'm going to open another corpus, which is, and now I'll take the brown corpus. Don't worry that that it says brown 2. It just means that it's the second version of the brown corpus. That's because the original brown contained a few errors, so they just created the second version. Okay, but while the brown is being post-tagged now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these files. I don't need them anymore. And then just take all of these files and put them into the main directory. And we can also have a look at one of the tagged files, which now looks like this, right? So we can already now have a look at what the verb needs to look like. So now you know, right? So there's a VB with the verb. You're going to know, you're going to see. So is this WBZ? Has this WBZ supporting? It's a verb gerund. You're going to supporting doesn't work, so we don't need VBG, but we're going to extract them anyway. And here we have past tense, it's VBD. Right. So that tells us that if we want to look for verbs, it's all with VB. That's good information. And it also shows that the post tagging has worked. Good stuff. Right. Again, here, post tagging takes a while. But now, once we've post tagged the data, we're then actually in a situation where we can start with the retrieval of going to and will. You could also look for shall, right? So in English, you have different ways of encoding futurity. So I'm going to go to the park means that I'll go to the park in the future, and I will go to the park, same thing. And if someone said, I shall go to the park, then that also is a way of saying that they intend to go to the park in the future. So these are the things that we're going to look at. We're not going to look at shall, it's just not frequent enough. And here we just want to compare will and going to. Right. Yeah, this really takes a long time. Well, comparatively, other programs also take time for that task. So it's still comparatively swift. But still takes a few minutes. Right, actually, I'm going to pause the recording and get back to you once it has worked, and once I've also, it's almost finished. So it says that 100% are now post-tagged. It just needs to save the files. So that shouldn't take that long. Here it's MNPR. So with M, it's 3 more files to write. Three more files to write. Oh, won't take that long. And one more, and then we're done. Perfect. So now I can clear the files, say open files. I'm going to go to lob and then open all of these and also say start. For the brown, I'm doing the same thing. Here, I'm going to remove these versions. Just working with POS-tag ones. Also have a look here. And again, it's worked quite well. Okay, cool. Right. So here again, we need to wait until everything is POS-tagged. But now I'm going to stop the recording and get back to you once it is finished. All right, welcome back. The POS-tagging has worked for the lob corpus 2. So, sorry, that's not the right file. We need to go into tagged. You can see it here, right? Everything's tagged. We have the verbs all good. So that means that we're going to delete that. We don't need it anymore. Again, I still have an original version, so I don't need this. I'm just going to put it in the main directory of the corpus. And we don't need to tag anymore, so I can close that. Now, in the next step, we need to retrieve the instances of will and going to, all right? So here, I'll just say open corpus manager, for files, I'm going to say as tagged, add files, the desktop, as open these, and create. So now what we're doing is we're retrieving all instances of will, of going to, and all instances of the verbs in the corpus. So now we've created the corpus. I'm just going to say going, going to treat it as regex. We're not going to use case. I'm going to say all hits, then token should be enough, and start. So that means that now we have all instances of going to. If you have something like going on or something like that, we can remove that later. But now we're just going to retrieve that. We're going to save current tab. Just going to put it here. I'll say that's going in ace. Now I'm going to look for will. Then I'm going to save the results. Will ace. And then I'm going to go for VB and also look for all of them here. Actually, in that case, I'm going to restart search once it's done because I want it to be case sensitive. It'll just take a while because there's so many verbs in the corpus, but actually it has worked. So that's actually fine. So I don't need to do anything else. That's fine. All right, cool. All right. So I'm going to save that. Yeah, I want to, okay. So call this VBAs. Okay. Now, I'm going to upload another corpus, namely, let's take the log first. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to call it log tagged 8. Moment. Oh, and main window. All hits, regex, perfect. So as we did before, going and it's not going case, going lob, will, VB, just do it exactly like we did before. Again, we know that will take a little while. But we'll get there eventually. Okay, I'm going to save the results. Okay. Now, open Corpus Manager, the add files. Now we're going to load brown. Right. And then we'll repeat what we just did for the brown corpus. Turn to main window, we see the files loaded. Save current tab results. Going to in brown. Will in brown. Also easy peasy. And VB. That will start a little bit. You might ask yourself, why all verbs? All right. So here we want to find out if there are verbs that are especially attracted to going to, and if there are verbs that are attracted to going to preferring will, right? So you could basically compare only the frequencies in will and going to, but that would only give you whether among the verbs that are preferred in the future construction, whether they have preferences for one of the two constructions. That's also perfectly fine, but here we also might want to look at if verbs overall prefer to be used in the future, right, in the future construction. So that's why we're also retrieving all verbs. So if I do extract the data, then I can already extract information that might be useful later. Right. So that's it for this part. So just to recap what we've done, our aim is to do an analysis of will and going to in Australian, American, and British English. We've cleaned the corpora, and now we've retrieved all verbs, all instances of going to, and all instances of will. And we've used TextPad for data cleaning, for pre-processing. Then we've used TagAnd for part-of-speech tagging because we needed to extract the verbs. And now we've used AndConc to extract the instances. And in the next step, we're going to use Excel to further clean the results and therefore the analysis, but that will be in a separate video. All right, so that's it so far. If you do something similar, then that would be basically what you need to do in order to pre-process and clean the data and to part-of-speech tag it and to retrieve instances, right? So the second part will then show how you can clean the results in Excel, and also how you can analyze the data. All right, that was it. Have a great day and talk soon. Bye-bye, Martin.